Hi, my name's Steve and welcome to the Seaside Allotment channel, and this video is all about perennial kales and alternatives to perennial kales, because there's some fantastic alternatives. And I think, what I want to talk about is why you would grow a perennial kale and how you grow perennial kales. So let's just start off talking a little bit about kales in general. So we grow quite a few. We grow the curly green kale, a curly red kale. We grow 1,000 head kale, hungry gap kale, what else? A couple of Carvalho NERO and Dazzling blue, and I think it's called Black Magic, and if not, I'll be putting it up in the notes for this video. So that's quite a nice range of different kales, lots of different tastes, lots of different textures. Now, the 1,000 head kale and the hungry gap kale are also very like the perennial kales in taste and texture. They grow just as big, they're even more prolific, and you can grow them in a single season. So about March time is when you plant 1,000 head and hungry gap kale, and they're really beneficial at this time of year, when the other kales are kind of starting to come to their end, starting to throw up flowers, which you can eat, of course, which are beautiful. But they will go to seed, and they'll go to seed before your normal annual kales, your curly kales, and your Carvalho NERO are ready this season's. And that's the real advantage now. At that time, which is probably late April, May time, when the perennial kales, because they don't go to seed, are really in an abundance of growth. And so you can be picking those, and that just fills the kale gap in the year. For me, because I like a wide variety of kales, I will have planted last month, in fact, I planted my early kales, and I'll bring those on under cover and plant them out under cover in a few weeks' time, and those will be my new season kales for April and May. But you can, as an alternative, and in my case a complement, you can use perennial kales for that purpose. But there are some downsides to them. I find they grow very straggly, very long, slender branches, which are constantly being broken off in the wind. They grow very tall as well, and so their whole plant risks being blown over in the wind. Mine are staked with tree stakes, basically, to hold them in place. They're kind of straggly and tall that I find that after a couple of years I'm pulling them out and putting in new ones, and they're very expensive to buy. So I think I checked a couple of months ago, and PENNARD seeds, or PENNARD plants, where I got mine, I think they were somewhere like between £7 and £9 a plant or something like that, which is a lot of money. Of course, I've only bought over 2 plants, and just from those 2 plants I've taken cuttings. And so that's the beauty of a perennial kale. You can just keep taking cuttings off it, and at the moment I've got about 10 cuttings down here in the polytunnel, and those cuttings will grow into big plants in a single season. And so I'm always replacing my perennial kales with new plants from cuttings. So if you're thinking of your perennial kale as something that you're going to keep for 10 years, the same plant, I don't think that's the right way to think about it, unless you've got amazing growing conditions that are completely different to mine. I wouldn't think about it like that. I would think about it as a plant that's going to last 2 to 3 years and be constantly being replaced by cuttings every second or every third year, and think about it as your main source of kale leaves in April and May while you're waiting for your annual kales to come up. I don't think it's a replacement for annual kales. it's a complement to annual kales. So that's basically what I had to say. What I'll quickly do is I'll just show you the range of different kales at this time of year. So we're in February right now, and you'll see a very big difference between the annual kales and the perennial kales. So the best of my annual kales are always in the polytunnel, and as you can see they're looking rather nice, but like all annual kales at this time of year, they're all rising to seed, including these green curly kales. Now these have still got plenty of life left in them, and we'll still be eating them up until May, when they're all cleared out for the tomatoes and the peppers. But yeah, they're nice, lots of really good leaves, extremely tender leaves in here. That's one of the benefits of growing them in the polytunnel. You know, the leaves don't toughen up, so even the old leaves are still beautiful and tender. So by contrast, this is what my KALE NEROs are looking like outside. Not a lot to eat on these now, apart from these little bunches, flower bunches, and they are gorgeous, so I can't complain too much. So these are hungry gap kales, and you can see beautiful quality of leaf on these at the moment, and all of our plants are always picked every week, and so there's never very many leaves on them, because, well, we'd rather eat them than admire them on the plot. So very nice hungry gap kale. And this is what my green curly kale looks like outside. Again, not much leaf on these, but still very welcome. I love these really tight curled leaves, particular joy at this time of year. But again, these are all rising to seed. This is the first of the perennial kales, and again, very nice leaf quality on these. And we've been picking this one again every week, but you can see what I mean. It's a very tall plant. This was only planted last year, and you see what I mean about the branches. Extremely long, thin branches which just easily break off, and that's why I've got this bungee cord around. It's the only way I've found to actually keep these plants reasonably okay. And then occasionally you'll get a branch like that one, and I will take a cutting off this one, just stripping off these lower leaves here and planting that stem in the ground. I'll show you the cuttings that I've got in a minute. And there's another one, same variety, and again, really beautiful crop of beautiful quality leaves on here. And again, another branch that you can see down here, which you could cut off, but again, it's just a great source of cuttings, so I'm leaving it on here and just gradually taking cuttings off it as and when I feel the inclination. But you can see these long spindly branches that are always breaking off. And this is the second variety of perennial kale that we've got, and again, it's very spindly little branches, but beautiful little clumps of leaves, which we're harvesting at the moment. And this, later on in the season, these leaves will be much bigger than this, but they're very welcome at this time of year. I'm particularly enjoying them. They're kind of almost like a blown sprout, really lovely. And I've got quite a few of these plants as well, and quite a few cuttings. Basically, for the cuttings, I'm just breaking that off there and just sticking it in compost. Then we've got the 1,000 head kale, and you can see very similar quality of leaf, slightly more tender than the perennial kale, but still a lot of really good quality leaves on here. The difference is this one is going to start throwing up thousands of flowers soon, which again you can eat. I think the red Russian kale is particularly lovely at this time of year. Really, the quality of the leaves is just excellent, super tender, and quite prolific as well. And this bed in the back garden gives a really good roundup of the video, really, I think, because here we've got a dazzling blue kale and a green curly kale, and planted at the same time a perennial kale. And this is extremely shady area here, but you can see that the perennial kale is doing really, really well in that shade. And there's another 1,000 head kale there. And one of the differences I've noticed is that the 1,000 head throws up lots and lots of side shoots, whereas the Hungry Gap kale has a bare stem. I'm not sure whether these will ever grow into anything that's usable, but it's interesting difference between the plants. And you can see that one over there as well has got lots on the stem. That said, there are other things that you can eat in addition as an alternative to kales at the same time of year, so the sort of April-May time. We really like purple sprouting broccoli leaves, and these are really gorgeous. Cabbages, obviously. We're also very fond of the leaves of Romanesco cauliflowers as well as the cauliflowers themselves. And we grow loads of these, and we've got more successions coming. They're a really nice leaf, I think. We're also growing cauliflowers in the polytunnel, just interplanted into the spinach bed, and these should be ready in late April, early May time. We're also growing calabrese, and since this is all about leaves, we definitely like the leaves of these calabrese. They're really lovely. So yeah, we have quite a lot of those growing. I've even got some growing down there in the pots. They'll never make good calabrese flowers, but they certainly make good leaves. These are my little perennial kale cuttings down here. Got a few more there, a few more down there. And as I said, I just keep taking them every time I get an opportunity. So there we go. Do you grow perennial kale? Is it worth it? Do you do it the same as me? Any other hints and tips? Love to hear about them, and I'll see you soon.